How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, to recap another wild week in the NFL. Week 3 has now concluded, so we are almost a quarter of the way through the season already. And there's a lot to unpack between games, injuries, and even quarterback changes. So let's kind of run through it. So we did talk about the Thursday night game last week when we did our picks for Friday. So I did finish the week. In my spread pool, I went 9-7. A couple of bad beats, I'll say, and a couple of surprises. So let's get into that. So, and also, along with the games, there was a lot of special teams issues. We had a lot of blocked field goals that led to losses for teams, that led to teams coming back and winning and pulling off upsets. So we're going to cover all of that right now. So actually, we're going to start off with a game that was never really close. The team dominated from start to finish, and I originally picked them and then changed it. And when I went over my picks, I took the other team that ended up getting shut out, and that was the Panthers-Falcons game. So this game was never close, unless you want to count the kickoff as being the time that it was close. But the Panthers pick up their first win of the season. They win 30-0. Michael Penix, yikes. He went 18 of 36 for 172 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick six. And Bryce Young really didn't have a big game himself. But the Panthers defense, they made life difficult on the Falcons. Now, the Falcons, they missed a couple of field goals early on in the game. Like I said, Michael Penix threw a pick six that turned the game into 17-0. So the game was 10-0 at the half. But then the Panthers just pulled away. They outscored the Falcons 20-0 in the second half. The defense, they didn't sack Michael Penix, but they forced turnovers. They forced turnovers in this game. A couple of interceptions. Like I said, the pick six, of course, that was huge. But yeah, not a very good performance out of the Falcons. I was impressed by what they did defensively last week against the Vikings and Bijan Robinson, running the ball effectively. But yeah, they were flat in this game. They just could not do anything. Their former kicker, Younghoe Koo, he ended up getting picked up by the Giants, and we will talk about the Giants in this episode because there's a lot to cover with that. And them being 0-3. But yeah, this was an ugly loss for the Falcons. They're just going to have to regroup. But also, what was interesting is that they did end up pulling Michael Penix, and we got to see Kirk Cousins a little bit. So I don't know. Is Kirk Cousins going to maybe get the start next week? I don't know. Maybe they just put him in because Michael Penix was just it was a disaster of a game for him. So maybe that's why. And nobody's calling for Kirk Cousins. Because of all the injuries going on around the NFL, and especially at the quarterback position, nobody is picking up the phone for Kirk Cousins. So we got to see Kirk Cousins a little bit. He only went 5 for 7 for 29 yards. But yeah, the Falcons' leading rusher was Bijan Robinson. Drake London had 5 for 55 receiving. But the Panthers actually, their offense still was not good. They went 3 for 11 on third down. The Falcons actually outgained the Panthers in this game, 332 to 224. But and they averaged more yards per play as well. But not a good day for the Falcons. So yeah, both teams are 1-2 on the season. So let's go to another blowout. The Vikings and the Bengals. This game was never really close either. Vikings dominated from start to finish. He had 2 backup quarterbacks playing in this game. Jake Browning against his former team who cut him, the Vikings. Carson Wentz got the start. And yeah, there were 2 defensive touchdowns by the Vikings in this game. If you started their defense in fantasy this week, you had to be very happy with their performance. But yeah, the Vikings had their way with the Bengals. The Bengals, look, that offense is very explosive when everybody's healthy. But the defense is still a problem. And now with Joe Burrow being out, and Jake Browning is a serviceable backup. With all of that, and now you play against the Vikings who, came off of that bad loss against the Falcons on Sunday night. I mean, the Bengals have a lot of issues. And Browning, once again, turnovers were a problem. He has 5 interceptions now on the season. But yeah, he couldn't get anything going. The Bengals, I mean, they couldn't run the football. Jamar Chase was the leading receiver, but he only had 50 yards receiving. The Vikings had their way in this game. Jordan Mason ran the football effectively. They almost ran the ball for 200 yards. He had over 100 yards rushing, a couple of rushing touchdowns in the game. We saw a little bit of Cam Akers and also Xavier Scott as well. Carson Wentz was efficient, 14 to 20, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked a few times. The Vikings defense, they got to Jake Browning 4 times, 2 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles in this game. I mean, this Vikings defense was all over the Bengals. The Bengals, yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase fumbled, Noah Fant, Samaje Perine, Chase Brown, and Cam Grady fumbled, but they ended up not losing the ball. Yeah, just not a good performance by the Bengals. But again, that just shows you how, I mean, the Vikings are really, really good. I mean, their roster is a lot better than the Bengals. I mean, this game, it was 34-3 at the half. The Bengals, they fumbled the ball on 3 straight possessions. I mean, that is just, it's not good. It's not good. And then the Vikings, 2 touchdowns on their first 2 possessions. It was 48-3 going into the fourth quarter. The Vikings obviously, were in cruise control at that point. But yeah, not looking good for the Bengals. And you have to wonder, if this season spirals out of control, could they trade Trey Hendrickson? That's something to think about. Because next they got the Broncos on Monday night in Denver. Then you got the Lions. You got the Packers in Lambeau. So they're going to be dealing with more good defenses coming up. Then you got the Steelers at home. Yeah, not looking good. Not looking good for Cincy. But for the Vikings, I mean, at least for another week, Carson Wentz is going to be the starter. But, I mean, compared to what they looked like, that offense looked like the first 2 weeks, I mean, obviously J.J. McCarthy had that very good fourth quarter. But outside of that, it just, the offense was struggling. And now you insert Carson Wentz and look at the results. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. Because if Carson Wentz goes out there and plays really well next week against the Steelers, they get another win. I mean, are you going to put J.J. McCarthy back in? We'll see. We will see. But, yeah, what's interesting is the Vikings have back-to-back games internationally against the Steelers and against the Browns. So, and then they got the bye. So it's going to be very interesting what the Vikings do, but very good win for them all around. So after that, we'll talk a little bit about Commanders-Raiders. Didn't really pay that much attention to this game. Geno Smith a little bit better numbers than last week, but they were particularly in garbage time. I mean, Trey Tucker had a career day, 3 touchdown receptions, 8 receptions for 145 yards. But, yeah, the Commanders, it was a 10-point game at the half. They kind of pulled away in this game. They had a punt return that led to a touchdown. Raiders ended up, punting the football back to Washington. They turned that into a touchdown as well. It was 34-10 at one point. And then, they ended up winning the game 41-24. It was a 10-point game towards the end. Washington ended up scoring a touchdown on 3rd and 7 to really ice the game and put it away. Look, Marcus Mariota, he's done well in that system. He went 15-21 for 207 yards and a touchdown. Washington ran the ball for over 200 yards in this game. Rushing touchdown by McNichols, rushing touchdown by Mariota, who's the second leading rusher of the team. And then the leading receiver was Terry McLaurin, who actually is dealing with a bit of an injury himself, I think a quad injury. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. His status for week 4 is uncertain. We'll get into more of the injuries as we move along here. But Washington, without Jane Daniels, they go 2-1. Raiders fall to 1-2 on the season. Commanders will be taking on the Falcons. As for the Raiders, they are going to be taking on the Bears, who came off of a win. So there's that game. Daniel Jones, or as he's now being referred to as Indiana Jones, Colts are now 3-0, 41-20 over the Tennessee Titans. They did punt in this game. But Daniel Jones made a little bit of history. So he is the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era to have 3+ touchdown passes, 3+ rushing touchdowns in the first 3 games of the season without a turnover. I mean, he is playing some efficient ball right now. And the Colts are playing really well. Their defense is playing well. They're running the football. Daniel Jones is not turning the ball over. And he's doing more than just that. I mean, he's playing well. He's playing really well. Jonathan Taylor, 3 more rushing touchdowns in this game. How many does he have in the season now? Oh, he has 3. I thought he had more than. I guess he had. I think because he had a receiving touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably why. Yeah. So he has 4 total touchdowns on the season. I don't know why I thought he had another one, but he's been running the football effectively, and that's huge. And like I said, that is what made Daniel Jones successful with the Giants at times, is when you have that very good running game, and he's got that protection, and he's throwing the ball down the field. He's doing things that we really hadn't seen in a while with the Giants. And look, again, it all starts up front too. Because he took a lot of punishment with the Giants. Part of the reason why he got hurt so many times is because of that. Now he's with the Colts that have a stable offensive line, and they're in the driver's seat right now. It's very early on, but you got the Jaguars behind them. But you got to like how the Colts are playing right now. They look like the best team in the division. Right now, the Jaguars not the Jaguars, the Titans and the Texans are both 0-3. It's between Jacksonville and the Colts, but I like how the Colts are playing right now. But now you got a true test coming up. They're going to be playing. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because they beat the Broncos. But now you're going to be going up against the Rams. Let's see how Daniel Jones plays in that game. If he plays really well, then you continue to buy in. And then after that, you got the Raiders and the Cardinals coming up. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, you got to like how the Colts are playing. You got to like how Indiana Jones is playing. And he was on the Manning cast the other night, so they were joking around with him. But you know what? And Saquon Barkley said this too. He said outside of Philadelphia and myself, quoting him, he said the only other person that I like to see playing well is Daniel Jones. So I thought that was nice coming from Barkley. Again, just he's proven a lot of people wrong with how he's playing, including me, because I really doubted him after his Giants tenure ended. So Colts are 3-0 on the season and in first place in their division. So Jacksonville, speaking of the South, Jacksonville picked up a win over the Texans. Texans are now 0-3 on the season. 2 more interceptions by C.J. Stroud in this game. They had a missed field goal in this game. This game was 10-3 for a while. I mean, Trevor Lawrence threw a pick as well. It's not like Trevor Lawrence played well either. I mean, he had no touchdowns in this game, went 20 of 40. He threw a pick. But yeah, he wasn't playing well either. But until late in the fourth quarter, C.J. Stroud, first play of their drive, he hits Nico Collins for a 50-yard touchdown. He was wide open, and that tied the game. And then the Jaguars turned it over on downs. And then the Texans are driving. They're in plus territory. And then they end up fumbling the football. Nico Collins ends up fumbling the ball. They get it back. They turn that into 7 points. That was set up by a 46-yard reception by Brian Thomas. Later in that drive, ETN scored from 10 yards out to make it 17-10. And then the Texans are driving, and then Stroud throws a pick at the very end, and that was it. Texans are 0-3. And the Jaguars are 2-1. And, I mean, it's not looking good for the Texans right now. They do take on the Titans at home, so you would think they could win that game. But, again, Stroud is not playing well. I mean, they can't really run the football. On the season now, he got 2 touchdowns to 3 picks. I mean, he's not playing well. And I don't want to put all the blame on him, but at some point you really got to step up. I mean, and their defense is playing well. That's why I picked them to win the division, is because of their defense. But I mean, if their offense is just going to struggle and not put up points, I mean, they didn't really do anything for the majority of the Bucs game. They got off to a fast start, and then you scored the touchdown at the end, but then the Bucs went right down the field and scored, and then you only put up 9 points against the Rams. You didn't even score a touchdown. This offense is really, really struggling. You got to figure it out. The odds are really stacked up against them. I mean, after the Titans, then you take on the Ravens on the road before the bye, and then you got Seattle out of the bye, then you got the 49ers who are going to be healthy, minus no Nick Bosa, but they're going to have all their weapons back at that point. And then you got Denver. Yeah, it's a tough road ahead for the Texans. So they're going to have to figure it out. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with Joe Mixon. Is he coming back? What's the deal there? But yeah, this is not what I expected from the Texans at this point in the season. So they're in a bit of trouble right now. So then after that, so let's get to the other games that had a lot of excitement. But before that, we'll talk about the Steelers and the Patriots actually. Steelers-Patriots. Steelers get the win 21-14. I mean, this was an ugly game. A lot of turnovers in this game. The Patriots turned the ball over in this game 5 times. 5 times. You had a lot of fumbles from both running backs, Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. And then Drake May also threw an interception in the end zone, which got tipped by Cam Hayward. So that was the other one. But yeah, right away to start off the game, Ramondre Stevenson fumbles. And then the Steelers go right down the field. A couple of penalties set it up. Kenneth Gainwell scored from 1 yard out. And then this drive lasted forever, the Steelers. So after the Patriots punt, the Steelers go 12 plays, 90 yards. But there were so many penalties on this drive. There was 4 of them. So they kind of helped out. Well, there was a delay of game by the Steelers, which, happens at times. But yeah, I just felt like this drive lasted forever. So the Steelers got helped out by penalties. But Rodgers hit Jonnu Smith over the middle for a nice pass, 21 yards on 3rd and 10 to help set this up. Later, they got down in the red zone, and Rodgers hit DK Metcalf for a touchdown. Metcalf, a great catch, one-handed. And with that, Aaron Rodgers has passed Brett Favre on the all-time touchdown pass list. He is now in 4th place behind Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning. And when CBS showed the graphic of that, of the all-time touchdown pass list, I mean, I'm sitting there going, that's my whole childhood right there. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, we are never going to see an era of football like we did in the 2010s. And I've been saying this constantly for the last few years because everybody is retiring. I mean, we really only have a few guys left. You can count them really only on one hand with the amount of guys left from the 2010s that are still quarterbacking right now. But yeah, that was the best era of football. I mean, the guys that we see now, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, I mean, how Justin Herbert's playing, when Burrow's healthy, all those guys, Jalen Hurts, they are really talented. And you could say they are probably more talented than the quarterbacks from the 2010s. But give me the quarterbacks in the 2010s over what we're seeing right now any day of the week. Seriously. Again, it's just sad that it's coming to an end, but congratulations to Rodgers on the milestone, and let's see how many more touchdown passes he ends up with, which could be his last year. So yeah, I mean, it was 14-7 Steelers. Things were looking good, forcing turnovers, but then the offense just could not get anything going after that. I mean, every time the Patriots would turn the ball over, and I'd be flipping back and forth, between that game and red zone, especially with the Ramondre Stevenson fumble. I mean, the Steelers would do nothing with the football. So yeah, the Patriots put together a long drive that lasts over 7 minutes. They get down towards the goal line. First and goal, incompletion. First and goal, another incompletion. And then Drake May tries to hit Kashawn Boutte, and he gets intercepted by Brandon Eccles. But like I said, it got tipped at the line by Cam Hayward. That's why that ended up happening. Otherwise, that probably would have been a touchdown. So then the Steelers get the ball to start the second half, and Rodgers throws a pick. Bad throw on that. Robert Spillane intercepts it. He was a former Steeler. And then the Patriots, it looks like they punch it in, but Ramondre Stevenson fumbles before he crosses the goal line. And then the Steelers do absolutely nothing with the ball. They have to punt. And then the Patriots fumble again, this time Antonio Gibson, and the Steelers punt again. But then finally, the Patriots score. They go 15 plays, 88 yards down the field. They convert on a 4th and 1. There was a legal use of hands to the face penalty. So it was an automatic first down regardless. They convert on a 4th and 2 for a touchdown. Drake May hits Hunter Henry. He was open. nobody around him. So that tied the game. The Steelers once again end up punting. Patriots, they end up fumbling again, this time by Drake May. He gets sacked, and the Steelers get the ball. And then Rodgers on a back shoulder throw on 3rd and 6, corner of the end zone, hits Calvin Austin for a 17-yard touchdown. That puts the Steelers up 21-14. Patriots turned it over on downs. It looked like Demario Douglas was going to pick up the first down, but he cut back and tried to, evade the Steelers on that play, and he ended up getting tackled short of the first down marker, and they ended up losing the game. The Patriots played a lot better than the Steelers in this game. I mean, well, I shouldn't say they played a lot better, but they should have won this game. They should have won this game, but it's because of the turnovers. I mean, you look at what the Patriots did. I mean, total yards in this game. I mean, they outgained the Steelers in this game. They ran over 20 more plays than the Steelers did. They averaged almost a yard more than the Steelers per play. They ran the ball for more yards than the Steelers, but the difference in the game, everybody, 5-1. The Patriots turned the ball over 5 times. The Steelers, it was really just the Rodgers pick. That was it. So, yeah, the Patriots are 1-2, should be 2-1. And as for the Steelers, they're 2-1, and they will be going up against the Vikings next week. So, and that's an international game. And I'm curious to see how that game goes. But with the Steelers, a couple things with the Steelers, they still can't run the football effectively. That's an issue. I still think they need another weapon on this team. I've said that constantly. They're going to have to trade for somebody at the deadline. They're gonna have to do a better job of protecting Rodgers, obviously. And Rodgers was not great in this game, and it still has to work on the chemistry with his receivers. There was a play. I think this was in the first half, where he's rolling out and he tries to hit Freiermuth, and Freiermuth kept moving towards the sidelines. So that there was some miscommunication there. It ended up being incomplete, and you could see Rodgers is visibly frustrated with Freiermuth telling him to stay where he was rather than continuing to go towards the sideline, because otherwise that could have been a completion. And I know that that's how Aaron Rodgers is, and I know a lot of people don't like when he shows up his teammates. I get that. It's not the worst thing in the world, okay? I think players have done worse things than what Rodgers is doing. He's frustrated, but I get it. You don't want to show up your quarterback. I saw a clip of Ben Roethlisberger talking about it on his podcast. He said that's not what he would have done. I mean, he said Aaron Rodgers has the right to do that because of the career that he's had. But, there is a better way of handling it. Ben Roethlisberger would not have done that. I wouldn't have seen him do that. But he said he would have pulled him aside and they would have went over it. But I think they'll get it right. So that was another thing. But yeah, look, Rodgers said it at the end of the game. He held himself accountable. He says the offense was horrible. They got to play better. He's got to play better. He said the defense was great, which it was. I thought the third down defense, though, was not good. I mean, every time the Patriots needed to convert a third down, they would get it. Yeah, the third down efficiency, it was 6 or 13. I thought it would have been better. But yeah, look, the Steelers, part of the learning process is, this is part of the learning process. But it's important that you win games, and the Steelers, to their credit, are 2-1. If it wasn't for a couple of mistakes against Seattle, maybe they could have won that game. So, you'll take it. You're 2-1, and at worst, you're going to be 2-2 going into the bye week, which will really help. And then you got the Browns at home. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes against the Vikings. But with how the Steelers have been struggling so far defensively, what you could at least take away from these 3 games is they're still forcing turnovers. TJ Watt is still making plays. And if you get this offense going and the defense can get healthy, because they are missing guys on that side of the ball, this could be a playoff. This is going to be a playoff team. I really do believe that. And also Rodgers has to stay healthy too. That's the other thing. But yeah, they got the Vikings coming up, the bye. They got the Browns at home, and then they're going to be in Cincy. So, and how the Bengals look. The Steelers are the better team right now. So, there's some winnable games coming up. It's within the division. You do have to worry about that. And then, week 8, they'll be at home for the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football, which I will be at. Cannot wait for that game. So, speaking of the Packers, let's get into the other games now. we'll talk about the Packers now. Packers, everybody's talking about, hey, this team could be in the Super Bowl. This team looks really good, and they have looked really good. Their defense has played really well. Attacking the football, I mean, they shut down two very good offenses the first 2 weeks of the season. The Lions and the Commanders. So this was kind of a spot, because, I mean, the point spread was huge in this game. The Browns were getting 8.5 points in the beginning, then it went down to 7.5. So I did take the points, thinking the Browns would keep it close. And the Packers were up 10-0. Browns outscored the Packers 13-0 in the fourth quarter. Jordan Love did not play well in this game. The Packers really struggled in this game to move the football. They were up 3-0 going into the half. Joe Flacco threw a pick towards the end of the first half. But yeah, the Packers put together a nice drive in the third quarter. They went 14 plays, 71 yards, and this was a John Fitzpatrick touchdown, one of the other tight ends. A 3-yard touchdown by Jordan Love. So at that point, you're thinking, I mean, yeah, the Browns can't do anything offensively. This Packers defense, continued to make life hard for opposing QBs. I mean, the interception, and they got to Joe Flacco 5 times in this game. So, this game is not on the defense. This game is on the Packers offense. And look, credit to the Browns defense. The Browns have a very good defense. So that's why I was like, I think they could keep it close because the Browns still have a good defense. The Browns really don't have a terrible roster. They have to figure out the quarterback situation. So 10-0 going into the fourth quarter. Browns finally get on the board with a field goal. Some penalties kind of helped, set that up. There was a pass interference call on 3rd and goal, so that they got another chance. Actually, they got pushed back because there was a chop block. But they ended up making the 35-yard field goal to cut into the lead. And then Jordan Love, he throws a horrible interception, and that led to another touchdown because that got returned. Well, actually, no, there was a defensive pass interference, and then Quinshon Judkins scores from 1 yard out. So yeah, Jordan Love, you can't throw that in that situation. You cannot throw that interception in that situation. So that ends up tying the game. And then the Packers, they get into field goal range, 43-yard field goal, and it ends up getting blocked. And the Browns get into field goal range, and they end up winning it. A 55-yard field goal to end the game. And the Browns get their first win of the season. Packers end up losing. Like I said, Jordan Love was not good in this game. 183 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Packers really couldn't run the football. Josh Jacobs' touchdown streak ended. Matthew Golden had a big reception, which you thought he could have taken to the house, but he ended up going out of bounds. It was a 34-yard reception. But like I said, Packers defense, actually no, it wasn't the Packers defense. They had 2 sacks of Joe Flacco in this game. And then as for the Browns, their defense, they had 5 sacks in this game. That's what I meant to say. I got the 2 flip-flopped. But yeah, the Browns defense really got after Jordan Love. They made Jordan Love's life very difficult. So yeah, look, the Packers were due for a letdown game, but I think they're going to bounce back in a big way. I know it's only Tuesday, but I think they're going to bounce back in a big way on Sunday when they take on the Cowboys, and we will explain why in a little bit. Not only because of how their defense is poor, but also the Cowboys are banged up on offense as well. And Micah Parsons making his return, I cannot wait for that game. So we had that blocked field goal. So then you had the Jets and the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers were ahead for a majority of this game. At one point the score was 23-6 in the third quarter. The Jets were keeping it close in the first half, but then Tyrod Taylor, who got the start for Justin Fields, he ended up throwing a pick 6 that was intercepted by Jamal Dean, trying to hit Garrett Wilson. And this is literally right before the end of the first half. There was less than 20 seconds left in the game when this was thrown. So that was a huge point in the game. And I took the Jets actually with the points. So I'm thinking, all right, well, this game is over. But to the Jets' credit, they kept fighting. They outscored the Bucs 21-6 in the fourth quarter. You had a touchdown to Garrett Wilson with 10 minutes left. The Bucs kicked a field goal on their next drive to make it 26-13. Then, with a little under 4 minutes left in the game, Tyrod Taylor found Alan Lazard for a touchdown that made it 26-20. And then the Bucs, they're lining up to kick a field goal to make it a 2-possession game. And that ends up getting blocked and returned for a touchdown by the Jets, by Will McDonald. So they kick the extra point. They go ahead 27-26. Aaron Glenn is doing a dance on the sidelines. But game was not over. So then Baker Mayfield and that offense go down the field. 28-yard pass play to Emeka Egbuka. Another 20 yards to Sterling Shepard. And then Chase McLaughlin later, 36 yards out, kicks the game-winning field goal. Bucs win. They improve to 3-0. And the Jets drop to 0-3 on the season. Mike Evans, though, did have to leave the game with a hamstring injury, and he's dealt with hamstring problems for the last several years now. He's going to be out for a few weeks. So the Bucs continue to be depleted on the offensive side of the ball, not only the receiving core, but the offensive line as well. But they might be getting Chris Godwin back this week, which is huge. I mean, they're going to be playing the Eagles this week, so not a great time for Mike Evans to be hurt. And also Emeka Egbuka was banged up going into the game. But, yeah, Bucs get a huge win at home. And now this is 3 weeks in a row where the New York teams give their fans heartbreakers. Week 1, it was the Jets, losing on a 60-yard field goal to the Steelers. Then you had the Giants losing because of a 64-yard field goal and then losing in overtime despite scoring 37 points. And then you have this game. The Jets pull off a comeback, block field goal, return for a touchdown, and then it doesn't matter. The Bucs go right down the field and they kick a game-winning field goal. So let's see what the Giants end up doing. Now, again, we're going to get to the Giants. Don't worry. So, yeah, 29-27. Jets end up losing. And Aaron Glenn, after the game, said, this isn't the same old Jets. They fought. And I understand that. The Jets have been fighting in 2 of the first 3 games. But here's the thing, everybody. The Jets are still losing. They're still losing games. And like everybody is saying, and like Jet fans are saying, people in the media, until you prove to the fan base, until you prove to all of us that you can win games and you can finish off these games, everybody is still going to characterize you as same old Jets. It's true. But I think we might have a little bit of a controversy, the quarterback position, because Tyrod Taylor did his thing. The pick 6 was horrible. Like I said prior to this game, I said Tyrod Taylor will probably do a good job at, not turning the ball over. Well, that pick 6 before the end of the half was bad. But you know what? They came back. So, with Justin Fields' status still up in the air, I mean, is it possible that Tyrod can continue to be the starter? We'll see. So then we have the final game in the 1 o'clock window. So we went over the block field goal in the Packers game. We went over the block field goal in the Bucs game. Bucs were still able to get the win. But now we go to one of the best games of the day, and that was a rematch of the divisional round from last year, the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Rams. So the Rams, I mean, right off the bat, bad start for them. Stafford throws a pick. Eagles turn that into a touchdown. But then after that, the Rams scored 26 unanswered points. Field goal on their next drive, touchdown on the following drive. Eagles went 3 and out, -5 yards on that drive. Matthew Stafford hits Devontae Adams for a 44-yard touchdown. They kick a few field goals in the second quarter, so it's 19-7 at the half. But then the Eagles get the ball, and they actually muff the punt, or muff the kickoff, John Mechie, but they got it back. And then Jalen Hurts gets sacked and loses the football. And then the Rams immediately, they run a play action. They hit Kyren Williams out in space. He scores from 10 yards out. So it's 26-7. And I thought at that point, I said, this might be the Rams' day. But then the Eagles scored touchdowns on their next 2 possessions. They finally get A.J. Brown involved. He had a big play on this drive. And then wide open over the middle was Dallas Goedert for a 33-yard touchdown to make it 26-14. Rams then punted. Eagles put together a nice drive, 13 plays, 87 yards. down the field, and then once again, Jalen Hurts hits his receiver. This time it's A.J. Brown. Like I said, he had a big game. I know everybody was complaining about that, to make it 26-21. So now we got a game going on here. The Rams then go for it on 4th and 1 from almost midfield. Well, past midfield, actually. They don't get it. They turn it over on downs. Then the Eagles turn it over on downs. Rams get a huge stop on 4th and 7. Hurts tries to hit A.J. Brown, ends up being incomplete. But then the Rams end up fumbling again, which was the blocked field goal. Rams are going for a field goal. It ends up getting blocked. And then later on the Eagles' ensuing drive, Jalen Hurts hits Devontae Smith for a 4-yard touchdown on 4th and goal. And the Eagles were ahead 27-26. But the Rams still had time on the clock to get in the field goal range, and that's what they did. They went to work. Stafford hit Puka Nacua for 9 yards. He hit Nacua for 12 yards later. Another 9 to Jordan Whittington. They get down to the Eagles 26 on 3rd and 3. So I said, all right, I took the Rams with the points. So even if they don't win, I still win the game. And I would have had 10 wins this week. But not only does that not happen, not only do the Rams miss the field goal, not only does it get blocked, but the Eagles then return it for a touchdown. Jordan Davis returns it for a touchdown. And the Eagles end up winning 33-26. And that was one of the worst beats I've ever had doing a spread pool. So the Rams go from potentially winning the game to that. Now, this kind of reminded me of what would have happened in an alternate universe had the Rams let the Bucs come all the way back and Tom Brady and the Bucs knocked them off and win the game in the divisional round a few years ago. That's what would have happened, because that's basically what happened in this game. Is the Rams just, they let the Eagles come back. You know, the defense just could not get stops. Jalen Hurts and that offense, I mean, even without Saquon Barkley, because the Rams did a very good job at minimizing Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley did nothing in this game. Got a decent amount of carries, but only for 46 yards. The Eagles only ran the ball for 86 yards in total. But Jalen Hurts was efficient. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, did turn the ball over. The fumble was bad. But we got to see A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. The passing game got it going in this game. And that shows you that when the Eagles need to unleash their passing game, they can do it. They can do it. And they pulled off a very good comeback. Now, we've seen so many comebacks like this over the years, so it's not like something we haven't seen before, but it just goes to show you, everybody that's panicking about the Eagles, the passing game, what's wrong with it, the Eagles are boring, they will unleash their passing game when they have to. They just really haven't had to do it these first couple of games prior to being down by a lot against the Rams because of how the game was going. You know, I mean, against the Chiefs. I mean, you know, that game was close, and then there was a turnover, and then when the Eagles had to throw the knockout punch, they did that in that game. And, you know, they were going back and forth with Dallas in the first game of the season, but then, you know, they got stops when they needed to on defense. Defense picked up the slack of the offense when that weather delay happened. And then this game, when they had to throw the football, they did, and they took advantage of the Rams. Maybe not having the greatest secondary, you know, but yeah, I mean, look, they only got to Stafford one time, the Eagles defense. Rams, I mean, they got after Jalen Hurts. They sacked him 4 times, but it's just, I don't know what happened. You know, they just, the Eagles offense woke up, and then a big play on special teams, and they're 3-0 on the season. Rams dropped to 2-1. Next week they will be taking on the Colts. And then for the Eagles, they're going to be taking on the Bucs. And they've had a problem with the Bucs. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be in Tampa. So that is all the early slate of games. So now we go to the second half window. So we'll get this game out of the way. But, yeah, the Seahawks were all over the Saints in this game. Saints never really had a chance. This game was over at the half. I mean, this game was over after the first quarter. It was 38-6 at the half. Sam Darnold had an efficient day. They had a couple of rushing touchdowns by Kenneth Walker. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a touchdown. Torrey Horton had a good game, a receiving touchdown, and he also ran back a punt return. And that was the first punt return the Seahawks have had in 10 years since Tyler Lockett. It's been a long time. But yeah, Seahawks defense, a couple of sacks. They had they got a turnover off of Spencer Rattler, an interception. But yeah, 44-13 in this game. Yeah, Saints are not good. Seahawks, they're a sneaky good team. I mean, they could be 3-0 had, Nick Bosa not had knocked the ball out of Sam Darnold's hands. But they got the Cardinals this week. That's a big divisional game coming up. But yeah, the NFC West looking pretty good early on. So yeah, 44-13. You had a last-second field goal by the 49ers. They win 16-15 over the Cardinals. Big drops in this game. Two huge drops by Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, one of them was, he was wide open. Nobody was around him, and he just drops, and then Fred Warner is standing over him after the play. He was not happy after the game. He held himself accountable, which you like to see in a young player. But yeah, that was a huge point in the game. Also, a couple of major injuries out of this game with the 49ers. Nick Bosa out for the year, torn ACL. This is the second time this has happened in 5 years, because it also happened in 2020 as well. That was the second game of the year. This was the third game. And they panned to Bosa on the sidelines as he's walking off. I guess, a fan caught his attention, and asking him if he was okay, and he held his thumb down, so he knew that it was not good. So the 49ers lose him as the injury bug continues to plague them. And then James Conner late in the game, he ends up suffering a season-ending ankle injury. It was a gruesome injury, and you don't like to see that. James Conner is one of the more consistent players in this league, and having him go down, it's tough. Doesn't get any easier for the Cardinals. So now Trey Benson's going to get more of an opportunity, but yeah, that's just a huge loss for the Cardinals. But yeah, the Cardinals, like I said, they swept the 49ers last year. 49ers, they made enough plays in this game. Mac Jones made enough plays in this game. Actually, I thought this game was over after the not to say it was over, but I thought that things weren't looking good for the 49ers when Mac Jones got sacked. Or no, didn't get sacked, but there was a penalty in the end zone that led to a safety. It was 15-13. But the ball, the 49ers got good field position, and they got into field goal range, and Eddie Pinheiro kicked the game-winning field goal from 35 yards out. And 49ers are 3-0 in the season. Give them credit. Despite all the injuries, look, you are what your record says you are. You're 3-0. Kyler Murray, not the best day. 159 yards passing, 1 touchdown pass in the game. That was to Trey McBride, a very good catch by him. But that was a tough loss for the Cardinals, and they'll be playing the Seahawks on Thursday. Again, that's a big divisional game. But the 49ers, look, they might be getting Purdy back this week. Now they got the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. You got a chance to go 4-0 on the season. So, and I don't think many people had that. Looking at the schedule, the Seahawks, the Saints aren't good. Cardinals divisional game at home. But then it's going to start getting tougher. Then you're going to have the Rams on the road. You're going to have the Bucks on the road. Falcons at home could be tricky, even though the Falcons really did. Week 3 went horribly for them. And then you got the Texans, who got a good defense, although their offense has struggled. So, the 49ers schedule is not hard. If they can get healthy, they're in great shape right now. But they got to get their guys back. But they won't be getting back Nick Bosa, which is a huge loss on that defense. But Robert Saleh, he can coach defense, man. He can coach defense. So, 49ers 3-0, Cardinals 2-1. So now we got a couple more games left here. The Bears 31-14 over the Cowboys. A couple of injuries. Cowboys lost another offensive lineman in this game to a high ankle sprain. I think that was, who was that? That was actually, so they picked up Jadeveon Clowney. He's going to be making his debut, I think, potentially on Sunday. But they lost another offensive lineman, Tyler Booker, high ankle sprain, 4 to 6 weeks. He's out, and they already lost one of their other offensive linemen earlier against the Giants, another high ankle sprain. So Cowboys are a little banged up on the offensive line, and they also lost CeeDee Lamb, who left the game with a high ankle sprain as well. But yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, man, that was the best he's looked. 298 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in this game. He hit Luther Burton for a long touchdown. He hit Rome Odunze for a long touchdown. That was a very good performance by the Bears. Dak Prescott had a couple of interceptions. One of them wasn't necessarily his fault. It went off the receiver and got intercepted. The other one was in the red zone on 4th and goal. Javonte Williams, I mean, again, he had 76 yards on the ground. Cowboys were driving early in the game, and then the Bears just ripped the ball out of his hands, and then they turned that into a touchdown. That was the Rome Odunze 35-yard touchdown. He's looked very good so far. But yeah, Caleb Williams hit Luther Burton for 65 yards. Hit Cole Kmet for a wide open touchdown, hit DJ Moore for a wide open touchdown. I mean, the Cowboys defense just is not good. But, I mean, look, I'll give Caleb Williams credit where credit is due. He played a very good game. He was comfortable. He wasn't running around like crazy like he was, especially in that game against the Vikings. He stood tall in the pocket, found his open receivers, and the Bears got the win. So, hopefully for the Bears, that continues. They play the Raiders. I think that's a very winnable game. For the Cowboys, they got a lot of issues. I mean, now, especially with CeeDee Lamb going down, your offensive line is banged up. Your defense can't get off the field. Your defense provides no pass rush whatsoever. I mean, I know there's some people that think the Cowboys can maybe, still sneak in. I don't think so. I think this is a bad football team, mainly because of the defense. I just think, look, the Cowboys are going to, and now especially with CeeDee Lamb being out, that's going to make the offense worse. I mean, the Cowboys, again, I keep saying it, they're going to put up points, but they just can't stop anybody. Now, they got the Packers coming off of the loss against the Browns. They're going to want to take their frustrations out on them. I think the Cowboys are losing that game, and they lose that, they're going to be 1-3. But you do have the Jets coming up. You do have the Panthers coming up. So I guess, you could win those games. But still, I mean, with the way the defense is, it's going to be tough. And then after that, you got the Commanders, the Broncos, and the Cardinals going into the bye. So it's tough. And then, out of the bye, as I'm looking at the schedule right now, you got the Raiders. But then you have the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Vikings, the Chargers, and then the Commanders. That's a brutal schedule right there. Late in the year. So, yeah, things are not looking good for Dallas right now. And Matt Eberflus going up against his former team. Yeah, his defense cannot do anything to stop Caleb Williams in that offense. And then another very good game, so we'll move on. Chargers 23-20 over the Broncos. Very entertaining game. The Chargers dominated the first half. Mostly. They were up 10-0 late, and then Broncos did a bit of a flea flicker on 4th and 2 from midfield, and Bo Nix hit a wide open Cortland Sutton for a touchdown. That made it 10-7 going into the half. And then the Broncos, they come out and go right down the field. J.K. Dobbins, who was quiet in the first half, had a 41-yard run, and then he had a 19-yard touchdown run. So that made it 14-10. And then there was a fumble recovered by the Broncos. They turned that. Darius Davis fumbled. They turned that into 3 points. So that made it 17-10. Chargers got a field goal to make it 17-13. Broncos kicked another field goal later in the third quarter. But when it looked like it wasn't going to be the Chargers' day, Justin Herbert and that offense put together a 7-play, 76-yard drive down the field. And Justin Herbert, off balance, hits Keenan Allen in the end zone, 20-yard touchdown to tie the game. Third straight game with a touchdown from Keenan Allen. I mean, he looks like the wide receiver one for the Chargers. The Broncos went very quietly. They went very quietly out, 3 and out. Chargers get the ball back. They get into field goal range. Cameron Dicker, 43-yard field goal. Chargers improved to 3-0 in the season. Broncos drop to 1-2. Now, the Chargers, they lost Najee Harris in this game. Season-ending Achilles injury. He just went down. He went down. Chargers ran the play. He just went down, and Justin Herbert jumped over him to, throw the pass that ended up being completed. But yeah, it ended up being the Omari and Hampton show because of it. And had his first good game as a pro, 70 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Also 59 yards receiving in this game. But Justin Herbert, 28 of 47, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Did get sacked a handful of times by this Broncos defense. Got sacked 5 times. And then as for Bo Nix, he got sacked a couple times. But Justin Herbert hung in there, and the Chargers got the win. Chargers look very good right now, and they will be taking on the Giants this week, and I will be at that game. But yeah, Broncos, a couple of tough losses, a couple of game-winning field goals back-to-back that they have fallen to. So they got to get things right. They got the Bengals coming up at home. They should win that game, and then they got the Eagles the following week in Philly, so that's going to be a tough game. So I think the Broncos can get their record even against the Bengals coming up. But yeah, very exciting game there. And then now we get to the Sunday night game between the Giants and the Chiefs. So, Chiefs were 0-2 going into this game. Giants were also 0-2. I mean, did anybody think the Giants were going to win this game? No. Now, was I impressed with the Chiefs? Not really. Because the Chiefs are another team. They can't run the football. Patrick Mahomes still has to scramble around. He's not getting the protection that he needs. And, the offense still doesn't scare me. But when they were going up against the Giants, a team like the Giants, they took advantage of that. Also, the Giants, they with their home opener, they have now introduced this new chant. They had Brandon Jacobs come out and address the crowd and get them pumped up. Go, Big Blue. Go, Big Blue. And I'm sitting there going, it's not really going to do anything, man. It's not. It's not. Because, when you look at the crowd, there's blue and then there's a lot of red. So, yeah, it's giant colors, but Chiefs took over that stadium. And listen, I've seen the Chiefs take over a stadium in person. When I went to Jets-Chiefs on Sunday night a couple of years ago. It was like you were looking out at Christmas colors. That fan base travels, and it's just the Giants, they don't have a good home field advantage. They don't. And partly it's because the team has just been, not playing well. They have one of the worst records in the NFL since 2017. So the Giants get the ball to start off. And they get down to the Chiefs' 28-yard line. They go for it on 4th and 3, and of course they don't get it. It gets batted down at the line, and the Chiefs take over. Then Chiefs get into field goal range. Harrison Butker kicks a 54-yard field goal that doinks off the upright and goes in. So that made it 3-0. Giants then punted again. Chiefs once again settle for another field goal. So now you got Russell Wilson and the Giants on their next possession. Russ heaves up a moon ball, and that gets intercepted. He tries to hit Wan'Dale Robinson, but there's Chiefs all over the place. And now that you would think the Chiefs would take advantage of it, they get into field goal range, and Butker misses a 40-yarder. And he also missed an extra point in this game as well. So now the Giants, heavy dose of Cam Skattebo. Skattebo was involved in almost every play. A couple of penalties. There was a roughing the passer call, defensive holding, and then Skattebo from 13 yards out scores a touchdown. And that tied the game. And once again, everybody, Graham Gano dealing with an injury. So they got to use the punter. He tries kicking the extra point. Ends up missing it. And, so it was 6-6. But then the Chiefs end up punting. And I don't know how this happened, right? So Mahomes, he ends up losing the ball. I don't know how the Giants didn't get it. I really don't know how they didn't get this. But you had the Giants a golden opportunity for to get the ball in good field position, and they were in field position in this on their next drive, but Mahomes, he throws a backwards pass that ends up being on the turf. And the Giants can't scoop it up. They can't scoop it up. Bobby Okereke tries to scoop it up, and Mahomes ends up, ripping the ball away from Bobby Okereke. So then the Chiefs end up punting. I mean, the Giants, end up, getting a face mask penalty that puts them in good field position. But then Russ, he throws up a ball to Neighbors, and it gets intercepted. And Neighbors did nothing in the first half. Giants couldn't get the ball to him at all. And then the Chiefs on their drive, they end up, getting into field goal range and kicking a field goal before the end of the half. He had a defensive pass interference. He had an illegal contact. And they get the ball to the Giants 11. They kick a field goal. And it's just, rather than the Giants having the lead, the Chiefs have the lead going into the half. It's unbelievable. But then the Chiefs, they come out in the second half. They put together a nice drive, and Mahomes hits Tyquan Thornton for a 5-yard touchdown. So that made it 16-6. Giants ended up punting on their first drive of the second half. They did kick a field goal later. There was a defensive pass interference on 4th and 6. Graham Gano actually kicked the field goal from the 7. So that made it 16-9. But then the Chiefs, they put together another touchdown drive, set up by a long pass to Thornton, 33 yards. And actually, Mahomes tried hitting him before that. It looked like it was complete. Ended up being incomplete. It would have been for a touchdown. And then Mahomes goes right back to him and ends up being a completion. And then that sets up a 1-yard touchdown from Kareem Hunt. And then they missed the PAT. And then the Giants turned it over on down. This was horrible. So the Giants get down to the Chiefs' 4-yard line. So Russell Wilson completes a pass to Wan'Dale Robinson on a 4th and 5, 26-yarder. Gets the Giants down to the 4-yard line. Okay. You got 4 chances to punch it in. And also, I didn't like the urgency of the Giants. I just felt like they were showing a lack of urgency at that point because, it's more likely than not the game's over. But you still kind of have a chance. And every second is precious. But yeah, so 1st and goal. Russ throws it out of the back of the end zone, incomplete. Intentional grounding. So that pushes them back 10 yards. Then you run a QB draw with Russell Wilson. Really? For 4 yards. Then Russ drops back again. Throws it out of the back of the end zone. Incomplete. 4th and 10. Russ drops back. Throws it out of the back of the end zone for an incompletion. Doesn't even take a chance. If it gets intercepted, so be it. But that was such a terrible sequence. This Giants team, again, cannot score in the red zone. It's unbelievable. And I know they scored a lot against the Cowboys, but it's just now you're playing a real defense and you can't do anything. It was the same thing as against Washington in week 1. They just continue to struggle in the red zone. And then they got the ball back another time, but they went 4 and out. And the Chiefs ended up kneeling it down to end the game. Russell Wilson, 160 yards passing, 18-32, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The Giants' defense just could not get to... they got Mahomes a couple times, but there were some times where you thought they would get him, and then Mahomes shook loose from them and, would get out of it and complete a pass. He's unbelievable when he does that. But, the Giants, once again, just so many missed opportunities in this game. Paulson Adebo could have had an interception. He dropped it. There was the backwards pass that was a fumble. How do you not pick that? You got to fall. Everyone's saying fall on it. Fall on it, yeah. Rather than have Mahomes rip it away from you when you didn't fully secure it. So that happened. Penalties, again, continue to be an issue. The only bright spot of the game was Cam Scatterbo. 10 rushes for 60 yards and a touchdown. He's a good player, and he was their leading receiver. Malik Neighbors only had 2 receptions for 13 yards. You got to get your receivers more involved in the game. Only 7 targets. And again, the Chiefs did not look that good in this game, but it's because the Giants and their ineptitude to win games, take advantage of the opposition not playing that well, they lose. They're 0-3. This is a game they could have won. But again, it's just like the Jets. It's New York football in general. Could have, should have, would have. That's what this game was. But who thought the Giants were going to win this game? Not a lot of people, if any. The Chiefs were not going 0-3. So yeah, the Chiefs were not impressive at all to me. But they just had to be just good enough to beat the Giants, and they were able to do that. But the Giants had so many opportunities. Quarterback play was not great in this game. Special teams issue with Graham Gano, having to kick an extra point with the punter, Jamie Gillen. So yeah, the Giants are now 0-3. And because of that, they picked up Younghoe Koo. So he might have a chance to be the kicker. No, I'm just kidding. Well, they did do that. But the big move, everybody, because after Brian Dable's comments, you got the sense that, okay, is it going to be time? And we saw a little bit of Jaxson Dart the other night. He did play, didn't throw a pass. Haven't really seen him throw a pass yet. Well, you'll be seeing him throwing plenty of passes on Sunday because, ladies and gentlemen, Jaxson Dart will be the starting quarterback for the New York Giants on Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. That's it. The Giants have pulled the plug on Russell Wilson. That's it for him. He is now the backup quarterback. The Jaxson Dart era begins in New York. Yeah, I mean, this is I can't really argue with this decision. I know I was a proponent of, hey, Russell Wilson needs to start the whole year. I don't want to see Jaxson Dart at all. In a perfect world, that would be great, but that was not realistic. It was not realistic. It was not going to happen. Jaxson Dart was going to start at some point. Now, I was saying maybe later in the season, but it's the fourth game of the season. So, yeah, and the way the Giants' offense has been 2 of the first 3 weeks, they need a change. They need a change. And you know what? Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, this is your last shot. Show us what Jaxson Dart can do under your tutelage. And, if Jaxson Dart plays well and the Giants' offense actually proves to be competent with Dart at the helm, then, you know what? They might have saved their jobs. But this schedule is very tough. So it's going to be hard to win games. I don't think the Giants are going to win on Sunday, but you know what? Maybe Chargers are due for a letdown game. They got to come across country. So, but yeah, I think Jaxson Dart is going to provide, first he's going to provide energy. The Giants need that right now. But also, it's just Russell Wilson. Look, I thought he could play at least how he did with the Steelers prior to him losing the 5 games in a row to end off the year. But he was completely shot. He was cooked. It's just that sequence at the end of the game. What was that? It's just they need to provide. They need to jolt them. Jaxson Dart provides you with more mobility too. Russ scrambled a little bit the other night, but Jaxson Dart can move around more, and I feel a lot better knowing that Andrew Thomas is back. We saw him a little bit. The offensive line is somewhat better now. So, and now you got Cam Scatterbo who's been running the football. Tyrone Tracy actually went down with a shoulder injury, so he's gonna miss some time. But I like what I saw out of Scatterbo, and you know that they're gonna be trying to get Neighbors more involved because Neighbors has been frustrated with what's been going on. So yeah, Jaxson Dart era begins. Let's see what happens, But not expecting a lot of wins for the Giants coming up, and hopefully he plays well. I wish him nothing but the best. But, yeah, fingers crossed with that. So now we got the final game of the week. I'm pretty sure I went through every game. Let me double check. Yep, every game I gone through. The last game last night, Ravens and the Lions. Very good game. Very good game from start to finish, back and forth. I ended up sitting the players on the Lions that I had in fantasy because I thought that the Ravens were going to dominate this game. I thought they were going to get after Jared Goff. I thought that, they were going to fail to run the football. I just thought that the Ravens were going to do something similar to what they did a couple of years ago. Because we saw, a couple of years ago, the Lions got destroyed by the Ravens. And, and we saw what happened when Jared Goff was under pressure all day against the Packers. It was a long day for that offense. But if you were to tell me that one of these two teams would run the ball for over 200 yards. Now, I know that the Lions love to run the football, but if you were to tell me that a team ran the ball for over 200 yards in the game, would sack the opposing quarterback 7 times, in this game. And they ended up putting up 38 points and leading in time of possession and going 3 for 3 on fourth down. More so the sacks part. I would have said, oh, that's the Ravens, right? Nope. Lamar Jackson got sacked 7 times. Jared Goff did not get sacked at all. Lions were perfect going forward on fourth down. They were 4 for 5 in the red zone. And they won the turnover battle. Lions played a really good game last night. And after the first 2 possessions, like the Lions, they did a very nice job controlling the clock because they put together some very long drives in this game. Like the first drive, they go right down the field, 5.5 minutes, and Jahmyr Gibbs from 1 yard out scores a touchdown. And then the Ravens immediately respond. Derrick Henry scores from 28 yards out. And after Henry had a bad game against the Browns last week, I thought he was due for a monster game. But the Lions kept Derrick Henry in check, and Derrick Henry fumbled again in his 3rd consecutive game. But yeah, the Lions, this was a great drive. 18 plays, 98 yards. They go down the field. And Jared Goff, actually no, not Jared Goff. David Montgomery scores from 1 yard out, and he had a big game here. So it was 14-7. The Ravens end up turning it over on downs. I mean, they get the ball at the 3 yard line. Lamar Jackson hits Walker for a 34-yard pass play. Derrick Henry gains 2 on 1st and goal, falls short. They run it with Henry again. Lions stuff him. They run it with Henry again. Lions stuff him again. And then they try a pass play. Lamar ends up losing the football, getting sacked, and they turn it over on downs. That was such a huge play in this game for the Lions. And the fact that they were able to stop Derrick Henry essentially 3 times, gets tackled short of the goal line to set up 2nd and goal. Then he gets tackled twice again. They hold him out. I mean, what a stand by that Lions defense. Seriously. But yeah, the Lions did end up punting. Ravens then scored a touchdown. Lamar Jackson hit Rashad Bateman. And then the Lions, they tried to kick a 67-yard field goal. That wasn't going to happen. So it was 14-14 at the half. And then the Ravens come out in the second half. They go right down the field, score a touchdown. Lamar Jackson hits Mark Andrews, who had a big game, for 14 yards. That made it 21-14. So the Ravens had the lead. But then the Lions answered again. And Jared Goff hits Amon-Ra St. Brown for a beautiful pitch and catch from 18 yards. And Amon-Ra said some things. That it was caught on the mic. But he had a very good game as well. And then he caught a big 4th down reception later. But then the Lions have the Ravens go on a quick 3 and out. They score again. Jahmyr Gibbs scores on 4th and 1. I think this was the play where Amon-Ra lined up in the backfield, and then it was given to him, and then he pitched it to Gibbs, and Gibbs scored the touchdown. But this was also set up from a 72-yard run by David Montgomery. I thought he was going to take it to the house, but he got tackled down. But yeah, the Lions ended up scoring. Then the Ravens kicked the field goal to make it 28-24. And then this is where I thought the Ravens were going to pull it off. So on 3rd and 5, I thought Goff was going to take off with it and pick up the first down. He didn't. He tried to hit Khalif Raymond, ends up throwing it in the dirt for an incompletion, and then the Ravens get the ball back. And then immediately, Derrick Henry fumbles on the first play. Aiden Hutchinson punches the ball out. The Lions get the football. They settle for 3. So the Ravens still had another opportunity. They end up not doing anything on that drive. And then the Lions put together a 7-play, 70-yard drive. Knockout punch was the completion to Amon-Ra St. Brown for 20 yards. And then Montgomery scored a 31-yard touchdown. Ravens did score a touchdown. That was by Mark Andrews, his 2nd of the game. That's all she wrote. They went for the onside kick. They didn't get it. Jared Goff played well in this game. I mean, he didn't throw for a ton of yards, but, had a clean pocket, made big throws when he had to. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a couple of big plays, the touchdown and the 4th down play. They ran the ball for 224 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 by Gibbs, 2 by Montgomery, and like I said, 7 sacks of Lamar Jackson in this game. And and credit to obviously Aiden Hutchinson for punching the ball out and making plays, but also Al-Qaeda Muhammad also had a big game as well. He got a game ball at the end. 2.5 sacks of Lamar Jackson. He was making plays. Look, the defense gave up 30 points to the Ravens, but they made plays. They played well in this game. The Lions really got up for this game because a lot of people were counting them out here. They thought the Ravens, Monday Night Football, Ravens were going to come in and just dominate from start to finish. But nope, that did not happen. The Lions showed that, hey, we're still the Lions. Even though we lost Ben Johnson, we lost Aaron Glenn, we're still the Lions. And, they were still throwing out those gadget plays despite Ben Johnson not being there. So credit to the coaching staff, credit to this team. They're missing some offensive linemen, I believe, in this game. Going into this game, but they protected Jared Goff. They did a great job. He didn't get sacked, and the Ravens were missing Matabike up front, and they really did miss him because the Lions just completely gashed that Ravens defense. Ravens defense is a bit of a problem because now that's the 2 of the first 3 weeks where you had the Bills they put up 41 and the Lions put up 38. That's a problem. So they're going to have to straighten that out. But, yeah, another fumble by Derrick Henry. He was very upset after the game. Yeah, that is a tough loss. And now this sets up the 1-2 Ravens against the 1-2 Chiefs next week. So one of those teams, unless they tie, which hopefully they don't, one of those two teams is going to be 1-3 at the end of week 4. Isn't that crazy? Who would have thought that? But, yeah, that game's in Arrowhead. Yeah, it's going to be tough. That's a big game for both teams. That's a big game, but credit to the Lions, man. Like I said, people, were not high on them after Green Bay really brought it to them. Jared Goff did not play well. That Packers defense was relentless. But these last 2 weeks, they have shown that, hey, we're still the Lions. We're still coming for you. We still got a ton of talent on this team. We're not afraid of anybody. And that also is a credit to Dan Campbell and his philosophy as well as being a motivator. So, yeah, Lions are 2-1. Give them credit. So, yeah, that's it. We pretty much ran through every game. A lot of exciting games, a lot of injuries, quarterback changes, all of that. Some of the injuries season ending. So, as for the other ones, we went over it. Some of the guys will be back. CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans will be back at some point. But, yeah, another dramatic week in the NFL. But let me know what you guys think about this week. Anything you want to talk about in the comments, I'll try to answer it. As always, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, wherever you get your social media, or wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to us as well. You can also follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. That's what I meant to say. And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.